Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode. Today, we have the pleasure of having Jacob. Jacob, how are you doing today?
Doing great, man. Doing great. How are you?
I'm doing awesome. So, listen, for everybody else listening and all the entrepreneurs out there, why don't you introduce yourself? I think it's a better way to explain everything that you're up to.
Yeah. Man, where do I start? God, I mean, I'm about to be 44, so it's there could be a lot to say, but I'm going to simplify it. Yeah, man, I'm Jacob Gaspard. I'm from Louisiana in USA, and I I grew up like really poor. People talk about success nowadays, and it seems like it's like a uh like this buzzword that just goes around that and people just think it's automatic. And I didn't even know what that word meant because I thought people that were successful at such a young age and even to early adulthood, I thought that that was people who got lucky, you know. And like I said, grew up, man, my dad, high school dropout, my mom, high school dropout, raised me and my sister on $200 a week from my dad and like $400 a month from my mom. And my dad was an alcoholic, dude. So he's like Bluebell ice cream. He drank all he could. And then he gave us the rest. We had very little money, we government assistance, all that stuff. And then I always had this inside, I don't even know what I can't even say it was a feeling, but there was just like something. I just wanted more. I thought like something was possible, and I'm talking like there was zero um nourishment on success growing up. I mean, we wished we would win the lottery. You know what I'm saying? Like that was the only option we had to be rich, was to win the lottery. And ultimately I became a high school dropout and went to work in the oil field. And actually one of my first jobs was like a grass cutting on a pipeline. And then I got a job working at a Ford dealership changing oil. And I'll never forget this. I was making $6.50 an hour. And my dad, of all people, my dad, he thought I had made it. He was like, man, you're not working in the weather, because he worked on a farm. He's like, you're not working in the weather, so you're not in the elements. You're in a building, man. You're changing oil. Like he thought like career, man, like he made it. My son made it. And I met actually my first wife, and I was like, okay, there's more. She expanded my mind, and was like, there's more than what I'm just living here. And I tapped back into that feeling of wanting to own a business. But my dad had labeled me and he said, we don't own business, we're laborers. So, dude, that kind of created the barrier, right? That we cannot break through. Both men and women, when a father labels you as something, it's like concrete, man. This is who we are. But I had this outside source that just gave me a little hope. And what I did, I ended up becoming an electrician because I knew that's something I could still work with my hands and I could own the business. So it kind of married the two together. And so he was kind of happy about, the electrician part, or I thought so. He would be happy about that because I was still a laborer, and I could be happy because I was going to be a business owner. And dude, when I told my dad, he was pissed. I mean, he was totally pissed because I had to go to school for that and learn how to be an electrician. And he was totally pissed. And fast forward, years later, my dad just retired from, well, I say retired. He's semi-retired. He still works with me part-time, but my dad worked for me. My mom worked for me. I retired my mom from the school board, actually. And she came work part-time for me doing some, administrative, just a little office stuff.
Something.
Yeah, like just some bullshit, and then my brother-in-law came work for me. And you know what's wild? And I tell this to people, don't let anybody label you, because my dad worked for me making 3 times the money that he told me I was stupid for quitting at that Ford place. Now my dad worked for me on a very low level, like intelligence level, not real great. Um, Understanding common sense, like he's real great at that. So like all construction type stuff, man, he did all that. And yeah, we ended up in the sports lighting business, and we've been doing that since God, like 2000. Well, I think it's 16, 17 years that we in that business now, about to be 18. So yeah, that's kind of where the entrepreneur started. And then I ended up selling a company. Um, I lost some companies. I will say that things are rough, you know. And somebody like me, I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't have mentors. I didn't have anybody to lean on. So I just learned by trusting people in the field, and you find out pretty quick that their motives are not always in your best interest. But I was young and stupid, and I didn't know. And it's not like these people like really came out and screwed me. I just agreed to things that I didn't know the full ramifications of what I was doing. And these people just didn't explain it to me. And they're not wrong for that. It was just, you know, I'm not sure if I would have did the same thing, but it's just business. It's what it is. So I learned a lot from that. But sold a business, and I got into the life insurance business because I had a non-compete for my construction company. Um, so I started selling life insurance with a company out of
Yeah,
South
Jacob,
Carolina.
and real
Yeah,
quick for the before we move on to that, like
yeah.
what was the stage of the company by the time you sold it? So how many employees and all
Oh, we
that?
had
Because
okay.
that
So
was
yeah,
really
man.
a big success, you know, especially coming from where you were coming
Yeah,
from, right?
yeah, yeah. So that company that we got rid of, man, we had all our own cranes, we had our own excavators, skid steers, boring machines. We had 8 crews across the United States. And typically we ran usually about a 3-man crew. So we had 8 crews, we had all the trucks and everybody working all over the United States. We were probably doing 18 million a year,
Wow.
give or take, something like that. Now we were building sports complexes. We were doing the whole thing, you know, artificial turf, everything like that. So it was a big deal. So yeah, that was it wasn't a little company by any means. Um, and what's weird, I ran it out of my house, dude. For
Really?
many years, like for most of it.
Wow.
I had an office at the very end, and it was just because I thought I needed one. So that's just one thing for everybody out there too. You don't need all of these things. You can do so much. I mean, I'm on cell phone doing this podcast, and I do all of my business from the cell phone. I do have a laptop. I rarely use it because the phone is so easy. So you don't need all the offices. You don't need all the bull crap with it. Which is one of the things that got me in trouble with the first company. So
Makes sense. Jacob, and just so we can talk about kind of the success lessons, what do you think it took, to go from like again 0 to 18 million during that company?
okay, so probably the biggest thing was experience for me, because not I knew how to do the work, but I didn't know how to build the business. And so that experience taught me one thing, and it's sales. And I think the sales portion was the biggest overall portion of everything. Of course, management, leadership, that you're running 8 crews, it's a big deal. But we had foremans in place, so that was pretty easy. I think the experience that forced me to learn sales was the biggest thing. That it was the biggest learning curve. Um, and I will tell you this: The first job we did was a single football field. The second job we did was 4 softball fields. And the third job we did was one of the biggest sports complexes in Louisiana. And I undersold it. We kind of did whatever it took to get the job. And that's what I'm saying. In that experience of that one job, it was my number 3 job. And it almost tanked the company because I just undersold it. But we did it anyway. We finished it. We worked our way out of it. And from that point on, I learned how to sell really well. And then even with those sales, it was partnerships. So I got the sales, I got the partnerships. So if you know how to sell something and you got the right people around you, whether that be your employees or outside sources, the companies that you just collaborate with, as contractors or just, marketing, whatever it is that you're going to work with, that's key. Like that, you'll be unstoppable if you put the right people with you.
Sales and the right people. So why don't I let you finish your story, and then like you got into the insurance space, and then we'll go back to sales. How does that sound?
Yeah, that's good. That sounds good to me. So yeah, I got in this insurance space, and I was bored, man. 2-year non-compete. I was like, what am I going to do? Like, I can't sit home, excuse me. I don't fish. I don't. So I'm like, you can only work out so much. So, dude, I got in this space, and I didn't know anything about selling life insurance. So I got out in the field. Of course, they trained me on, a little bit like what to do, how to actually sell the product, things about the product. So I go out there, and my way of thinking in sales is totally different, right? Because I'm an electrician, but I specialize in sports lighting, specialize in artificial turf. It's nowhere in the box at all. So I took that same approach in the life insurance. So I got the niche down, and I was like, okay, here's who I'm going to sell to, which was first responders, actually. And I was like, here's what I'm going to speak like, right? Here's what I'm going to freaking wear. Here's what, like all the things that I do the same way. I just applied it here. And dude, I didn't even know.
Jacob, give me an example. So like what, like you speak where, so what happened?
Okay, yeah.
Wanting to target,
right, so
go ahead.
Right. So like in sports lighting, if you go and meet with, well, let me say this. In the sports lighting world, 99% of the time when you're going to show up to a place, you're going to meet with the head coach and administrator of the school or of the city, something like that. So they're not looking for you to be an electrician. They're looking to see how well you can solve their problem. Okay. So being an athlete, when I get out on the field, I'm going to meet with a coach. They're running practice or whatever, or I see something on the field if nobody's out there, and I'll be like, "Hey, look, your shortstop area has a little hole right there. If you get if shortstop gets a chopper, right, so a ball that's hit and bounce up, and hits that hole, man, that could be very dangerous. Like we need to go ahead and take care of that." Or light shine down. So I start talking about not lights. I start talking about their field and their program, and I'm dressed like a coach, like basically what I'm wearing now, a t-shirt and some workout shorts and tennis shoes, right? I'm not going with my pins in my pocket and my electrician belt on. I'm not looking like that at all. I look like they look, right? So, excuse me. So when I show up there, they're like, who's this coach, right? I look like a coach. Or who's this athlete? Like I look like somebody, and I got, a few muscles. So I stand out a little bit. Fitness is a big deal with sales too. I know people underestimate that. It's huge. It's huge. Because if you don't take care of yourself, like I don't believe you're going to take care of me. So that's really kind of where it starts. But what you dress, you get their attention because you come across as one of them, not like somebody trying to sell them. And then when you start speaking the lingo, right? So what language do they speak? Well, they speak softball, they speak football, right? So if you start speaking there, not, oh, where that white thing is on the foot. No, that's where third base is, right? Where home plate is, right? Where shortstop space is, right? And the 5-6 hole, right? So you start speaking that baseball language and they're like, oh shit, like this guy, yeah, dude, we trust him. Once you get trust, after that, it's about making the numbers work. If they could afford it, they will go with you because they trust you. So that's just a couple of things. With first responders is the same way. You dress like a first responder, not with the badge or any of that stuff, but you wear some tactical pants. You look good. You shirt tucked in, right? You're not going over there with your 3-piece suit trying to sell insurance because they look at you like fuckers just trying to come and sell insurance. And then whenever they start talking about things, right, so like I'll go and talk to somebody and I'll create a conversation with them, like a chief or somebody, and I'll say, hey, do y'all guys come in for roll call, or they 10-8 from the house? Immediately he thinks this guy's he's first responder or military because he knows how to speak this stuff. You know, there were times, because in Louisiana you could open carry. There are times like I actually had a sidearm and I would carry it. And it was for safety reason because some of the places I go are really like very intense. And even though I'm a big guy, you know, I could only do so much with my hands. So I would carry a sidearm. And I walked into a sheriff department through all the magnetic safety doors. They just buzzed me in. Did not have a clue who I was. I'm not going to say what area I was in, but they buzzed me in. They let me go everywhere. I actually sat in the sheriff's office. He came in and met me, and I had a sidearm, and nobody knew who I was. I mean, they knew who I was, but like they didn't know that I wasn't part of their department or part of any department. But that's how much you speak the lingo, you look the part, and people could tell, you know, you or if you're trustworthy, like that comes out. So that's some of the main things that I would do in the very beginning to be able to not only get business, but get people to trust me, and refer me. That was a huge thing, you know.
Oh, this is amazing. This is very, very cool. Very cool. So you go in, let's just talk about, for example, I think insurance would be something a lot of our guys maybe can relate more to. So you go in, you dress, or you know, obviously, as you said, not with the badge, but you look like a first responder. What does the conversation look like? And how do you take it from a casual conversation to a sales conversation? What does that whole process look like?
Yeah, so I mean, it's very, very simple. Everybody overcomplicates this, and of course, there is more to it than what I'm saying now, actually. But the surface level is you literally go in there and you ask them, or you ask them for 5 minutes to tell them exactly who you are and what you're here to do. Nobody needs to buy anything. I'm just here to give you information, and you could do with it what you will, right? And when I'm done, if they don't want it, what I have to offer, then I'm out the door. No ifs, ands, or buts. It never happens because, again, like you go deeper into it, right? Because there's nuances to all this stuff. And of course, it's just every salesperson is different. So the way that I would go in and sell with my build, bald head, beard, muscles, tattoos, when we could wear the same clothes and they're going to perceive us 100 miles apart, right? I mean, we're going to look totally different. The way we speak, the cadence at which we speak, all of that stuff matters. So when I'm coaching people on doing, especially life insurance sales, you can't do what I do. You could do what you do. So what I would do with that is, and I do this with my own agents. I say, hey, man, like, they're like, man, I'm struggling. I did what you did. I'm like, oh, well, that's your problem. You can't do what I do. unless you look like me and you're very, like when I enter the room, everybody knows. I could not say one word and the presence is there. I bring this power with me. It's just how I am. Some people are not. We have one lady, she was like 97 pounds. She's not bringing a lot of power in the room. So she needs a different approach, right? So we would work her with more of a soft kindness, caring type approach to everything, where I come in and I'm like, I don't give a shit. Like I'm here to give you some information. If you don't want it, I'm out the fucking door, bro. There's like, I have way too much shit to do than worry about you. Her approach is a little bit more caring, like, hey, I'm here to help you, and here's why, and that those are worlds apart, but they get the same result. So it's all about personality when it comes to that, what you look like, how big in size you are, what kind of voice you got, how boisterous you are, and how nervous you are, because I've had people who were bigger than me and just nervous as hell, man, and really just can't get it together. So we have to, we use that nervousness and go in and be goofy. And we make the script for them. Everything's personalized. We make it for them, right? That's the important part to understand. It's not like a cookie cutter thing. It's like, and I just want to put that out there, because if whoever's going to listen to this, there's nuances to it. So don't just take what I'm doing and just go try to plug that in and be like, oh, this guy, I don't know what he's talking about. Well, if you're not boisterous like me, it might not work. You got to do a little bit different approach on it. But there is a lot of nuance with it.
So okay, I love it. So if we were to create a framework, what would you look at? So for example, you can even like make me as the test subject. Okay, well, it looks like you're not as big as me, and like I'm kind of not as loud as you, right? So like, how would you analyze that, and what would you build me a framework, or how would you kind of like, what would you do for me, for example, I guess?
Yeah. So like if you were going to sell life insurance, and let's just say you were working with me, or I was going to train you, the first thing that I would ask is what work have you been doing for the last 10 or 20 years? I don't even know how old you are. I'm just assuming you're my age.
Yeah. I've run a marketing agency, so mostly working as a marketer. Yeah.
Okay. So then the very next thing that I would do is say, what are the biggest expertise that you're in is working with marketers, right?
Working with businesses about marketing.
Working with businesses about marketing. Okay. So what kind of businesses?
All kinds, local businesses. Yeah, stuff like that. All kinds of local businesses.
So every kind of business?
Yeah, chiropractors, lawyers, real estate agents.
So what I would do is figure out, with somebody like you, I wouldn't say, okay, we're going to go sell to first responders. It's not what I would do. I would say your niche that you're in, right? You're going to start selling life insurance to those people. So since you do all kind of different businesses, I wouldn't recommend selling to those businesses, because what you want to do is you want to target marketers, because that's what you are. So I would say, okay, you're going to start selling life insurance to marketers. Okay, what does life insurance do for marketers? And that's where you start. Like, you don't start by saying, oh, what do marketers need? Well, they need this, software program. No. Life insurance is where the money's at. Marketers is my knowledge. I know everything about the marketing business, right? Because you are that. You are the marketing business. So then you'd figure out what, and of course we would work. This is not just like a one conversation kind of thing, right?
Of course.
So you work that out where it's like, hey, what's the biggest benefit that life insurance could bring to marketers? Is it a term insurance? Is it a IUL, which we already know it's an IUL, where we can build money, because marketers make a lot of money. We want to be able to expand that, right? So we want to put some away. So is it a tax advantage? It might not be building money. It might be, hey, we're going to take this $1 million, we're going to put it in an IUL, we're going to loan all the money out, and we're not going to pay any taxes because you don't pay taxes on a loan, right? So it might be all of those types of things, where you utilize it differently. So that's where we would start for sure.
So okay, makes a lot of sense. So what do you have knowledge in? Who do you identify as, in the marketplace? Go sell to that marketplace where you talk the lingo, you relate to these people, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay, ask that again.
No. Simply, yeah. I was saying it's like whatever I am, I go and talk to people like that, basically.
Yeah, 100%, because you know everything. You know the lingo. See, if I tried to go sell to marketing companies, I wouldn't sell anything because I don't know the first thing. I'm like, what is this? And you're like, that's a CRM. And I'm like, I don't know what the hell that even
is. Makes sense. So, and then even if I think really, like, you are, Jacob, you are bridging a huge gap, which is trust. Like, with everything you're saying, you're bridging the gap of trust, which is already huge. And then after the trust is you bridge the trust, is it just a numbers game, or how do you overcome the people who are just like, hey man, not now, or this is not a good time, or I'm not interested? How do you bridge that gap on your end?
Right. So that's all in the script, right? And all of that depends on the market of the niche market, right? So with first responders, the biggest thing for them is the danger of their job, right? So it's super dangerous. So this policy does this for these guys. That's different than every other life insurance policy, right? Different than every other company, because we do things specifically for first responders. So what we would do is, hey, we're going to take this, we're going to find this niche, we're going to put it in there, is going to create the trust, right? So one more thing to say about that in the building trust part is, I'm not talking about the product. Almost ever. Because you don't want a lawnmower. Like, nobody wants a lawnmower. They want their grass cut. So what does life insurance do for first responders? One main thing, when they wake up in the morning, they're going to know that it's possible that they're not going to come home, right? Which we all do. We wake up in the morning, we don't know, but for them, the stakes are higher. So if they got a family and they leave that family, especially because majority of them are men. As a man, your job is to provide and protect for your family, right? And they don't want to leave their families without. Because I know me, like, if something happens to me, I don't want my wife out there walking. So, and I actually say this. So this is one of the things. I don't want, if something happens to you today, you do not want your family to not only be mourning you, so they're going to be worried about mourning the death. Now they're going to be also worried about not losing the house, not losing the cars, not putting the kids through school, not even talking about college yet, buying groceries. So we're freaking out about keeping the power on and the rent paid, all of this stuff, and mourn the death. Or you put $100 a month or whatever it is, you provide all of this protection to where now the mom is there to console the kids through their mourning, mourn herself, and not worry about all these things because you took care of them. I go in deeper, but that's like a surface level, right? So you create that. I said that. So you paint the picture is if they do this versus if they don't do this, right? And it's a no-brainer. It sells 100% of the time when you paint that picture right, because they never thought about it, or they might have thought about it, but you don't think in that you don't go that deep with it because it's morbid, right? You don't want to think about not coming home. You don't want to think about another man raising your kids. You don't want to, dude, you do not want to, no man wants to think of that. So when you create that picture, because that's reality, man. Like people talk about, oh man, you're just trying to scare people. No, it's not. It's not. It's not a fear tactic. This is reality. If you die, is your family taken care of or aren't they? That's a simple yes or no. There is no in between. If you wait till tomorrow and you die today, then they're screwed. And we've seen that many a times in the business, man. People filled out 3/4 of an application and then said, we need to ask my wife. Man, I'm gonna talk to my wife. I'm gonna call you at the end of my shift. 3 hours in a shift, he was in Georgia, he got shot in the head, killed. And he got zero. If he'd have just finished the application, assuming he'd have got approved, his family would have got $250,000. Big difference. Big difference.
So painting, I think for any business, it's painting the best case scenario and the worst case scenario. Also, like really what happens if you do nothing, right? That's really what you're painting the scenario of. What happens if you do nothing?
Yeah. No, 100%. So just like, we've talked before, so let's not talk about morbid stuff, right? Because I'm good at selling that, and I don't want to get real deep into it because I'll have people calling me for life insurance from this podcast.
Yeah.
But let's just talk about normal business, right? So let's talk about a life insurance agent. All right. So as you know, I train sales teams. So if somebody looks at my product and they're like, oh, well, it's too expensive, I just can't see spending it, right? The average life insurance salesman, that's killing it, right? Like somebody, I wouldn't say killing it, but somebody who's doing pretty well. They're selling 10 policies a month. Each policy, typically they'll bring in about $1,000 to the agent. So about $10,000 a month. Well, everyone that we've trained, one guy, and he's not the best guy, the average guy, came out his first week and sold 28 policies in the first week. He did it in 4 days. That's 28 grand in a week in his pocket, right? So could you afford my program? You can't afford not to have the program, right? So here's the picture. You're making $10,000 a month now. Or if you do like this guy did and you do it 4 weeks in a row, you make $100,000 in a month. My program doesn't look expensive anymore, and that's the difference. It's like you have to paint that picture, right? If people hire you, it's the same thing. It's like, what does it look like on this end? And then what does it look like on this end, right? And the tricky thing when it's not morbid, because look, the one thing we do know is we're all going to die. So life insurance is easier to sell with that. But with media or sales, like with me, I could tell you everything, but if you don't go do the work, then nothing's going to happen, right? With your stuff, markets and people you never know what people do, right? So like you can't guarantee things, but I guarantee you every one of us is going to die. So,
Sure.
So it's easier to paint. But with that being said, it's like, okay, if you do the work, here's what it can look like. And if you don't, you stay right here. Like, are you happy here? Or would your family prefer here? Like, what does that look like? It's going to cost you this, but you get this, and paint that picture,
Makes sense. Ultimately, you're just making it a no-brainer for people, even on the business side. And I really like how you said you have to put in the work. You don't put in the work, nothing's going to happen. What do you think the key is in your program? I'm maybe asking you this more as a business owner view. What do you think makes your program different from all these other salespeople where sales programs where your people come out selling, way more than other people?
Okay, yeah, great question. Great. I'm glad you asked that because the real difference, um, and I used to struggle answering this question because I was like, man, really, what is the difference? Like, we're talking about, um, of course, we talk about follow-up calls and all the tactics that sales, excuse me, all the tactics that other sales trainers do, right? And it really is the cookie cutter kind of situation that, and I'm not putting anybody else down because people know what they know, right? And they know what works. And I'll always say, stick to what works, stick to what you know. What I know is I realize what you said, the trust that when you build that trust, everything comes in that portion. And just a little backstory from when I was selling in South Carolina, we had this script that was like about 14 minutes long. And it talked about all the leadership, it talked about the product, it talked about everything about the company, and its foundation that's just solid, man. I mean, it was super solid. It was a great presentation. My presentation was 4 minutes. And I didn't talk about the product. I didn't talk about the leadership. I basically just went and painted the picture. And people, now, this is the leadership of the company that I'm giving the presentation to, filmed certifying me to be able to go sell this product. And I got up there and the first person said, there's no way you sell the amount of policies that you sell with that presentation. There's no way. Because my first month, I sold 185 policies. The second person said, that was the dumbest shit that I've ever heard in my life. Right? The third person said, man, he was a good guy trying to sandwich it, with the good and the bad, because it wasn't what they taught. The fourth guy gets up and he says, Jacob, he said, I've never heard anybody like this before. He said, I had no clue who you were, what you sold for, like what you sold. He said, but I trusted you so much that without knowing anything, I was going to buy. He said, because you have this trust factor about you that I can't help but want what you have. So when I built the sales program, I first tried to build it on tactics, right? Okay, how can I improve this tactic? How can I improve that tactic? And of course I did, right? We all have our little personalizations that we can make it better. But what really set me apart from everybody else is that I don't focus on the tactic. I focus on the salesperson. So nothing's cookie cutter. Everything that we do is face-to-face coaching like this. So everything's going to be face-to-face. So whatever you're going through, so you might hear me just tell somebody that they need to be screaming and hollering, and then you ask a question and I'm telling you, hey man, you need to calm, keep your voice calm, and the total opposite of what I just told the last guy. And here's why, right? And I'll give that explanation depending on that situation. So one thing that makes me different is the approach to sales. Everything is about the agent or the salesperson and the nuance that they bring to the table and to what they're selling. It's not a tactic. It's not the same repeat system. Every call is going to be different. And I don't have, of course, we have basic programs. That's basic sales tactics, but that is basic shit. Like you're supposed to know this stuff. The magic comes in the personalization of how to use those things, the nuance of how to use those things. I think if you don't have that, then you're going to be an average salesperson, just like most people out there. Correct. Because if you want to be one of the 1%, You can't do what everybody else is doing. You just can't.
Jacob, man, I love it. Let's I want you to try to coach me, and I know it's hard because you don't know much about me. So I
Right.
believe me, I know. But like, what would you say? Let's play a little. Let's role play a little bit here. How would you customize me to make me part of the 1% according to your plan?
Okay. So first off, I really can't start doing that because I'd need so much more information from you, right?
Okay.
But what I can do is we can try to um, what's your biggest problem right now, right? Like what's one thing that you need to switch, right? One thing that you need to fix.
Yeah, good point. That's a good question. So, what is one thing? You know, people, I think we are competitively priced. Um, I have conversations, but I don't hear back from a bunch of them, significant amount. I don't hear back from them. And if it's not a referral, let's just say it's a cold lead. That's kind of a common scenario, for example.
Okay. So what industries are typically the more prone to not showing up or not calling back or anything that you haven't had problem with?
Uh, Jacob, like I can tell you, last one was like a finance company. Before that, it's a fitness company. Before that, um, what else? Mm-hmm. Yeah, those are the two companies that come to mind.
Okay.
It's all over, we help all kinds of businesses.
Yeah. So what are the and I'm asking these just like I'd ask normally, right? So because I am trying to learn more about what you're doing. So what are some of the businesses that stick the most, right? So your biggest
Yes,
kind of clients, right? Right. Like the majority of who you're serving, what type of businesses are those?
lawyers.
Lawyers. Okay. Who can you help take their business from level 1 to level 10, right? The biggest gap, the biggest improvement, who do you serve that you can do that for?
Yeah, lawyers. Lawyers is pretty good too. Yeah.
Okay. So my question to you would be, why are you serving anybody but lawyers?
Um, it's just the business that we get comes from all over, but it's a
Okay.
good question.
Okay.
Fair
So
question.
to take it a step further, right? So you said the business that y'all get comes from all over, right? What would happen and what would it look like if you would like, are you marketing to businesses all over, or are you they just like recommend it, or you just like they're Googling and they're finding you and they're sending you an email or something like that? What would it look like if you would just shut all of that down and spend all of your energy marketing to lawyers, and then you become the lawyer marketing guy instead of he does marketing for everybody? Now you're set apart, but you're not set apart laterally. You're set apart and above. And the reason is because you don't work with anybody but lawyers. And then this lawyer is going to refer you to that lawyer. And he will. He will, because you're going to ask for it. Who else do you work with? Who else do you collaborate with? Right? Who else do you collaborate with that can use a bit of the services that we provide, right? Because if it helps you this much, And then you're going to refer them, right? Because it might be a different type of lawyer or whatever, so different people use different things. So they'll refer, this lawyer is going to refer that lawyer. Well, if he's got 10x the business, he's going to get 10x the referrals. Well, if you can do the same for that guy and give him 10x business, then this guy's going to have 10x referrals, right? Therefore, you will get recommended at a much higher level.
Wow. No,
And not only that, think about yourself, like up here in your mind. Now you're not thinking about how to get a more business to a carpenter and a plumber and a freaking whatever shop. You're only focused on lawyers. So imagine it's the same thing as if I have 10 buckets in a row right here and I have one water hose and I'm just trying to fill all these buckets up, and they're never going to fill up. But if I just take that one bucket and just fill it up right here, pretty soon I'm going to need a bigger bucket.
man, I love it. I love it. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, then the conversations are simpler. Hey, we do this over and over for lawyers like you. Here's one lawyer, here's another lawyer, like the conversations completely change. Makes a lot of sense, Ed Milet says we need to be reminded more than we need to be taught, right?
Right. So with the life insurance, so let me say this. We have people that sell to different kind of industries, right? But I hold them to only selling to those industries. Now, if someone calls them and wants to buy a policy, yeah, of course, I'm going to sell a policy, right? So if I get a soccer mom call me, I'll be like, absolutely, I can help you out with that. But when you're in front of these people and you're advertising for these people and physically getting in front of them, right? I think that's so and I know you're in the marketing space, but I'm old school with this. So I'm calling and I'm knocking on doors and I'm doing it the old school way because you know what? Nobody's doing that right now. No one's doing that. So when I show up, they're like, oh my God, thank God there's a person here, But what happens is like you create this brand that you only serve them. And like what you have is only for them. It's specifically for them. That you don't serve, like this doesn't work for contractors. This doesn't work for them. This is specifically for lawyers, right? And I'm telling you, like that makes a big difference. Big difference. Because when I was a electrical contractor, it's the same thing. That's why I got into sports lighting, because I tried to do everything. And did I get the work? Absolutely. But I was known for nothing, right? If you don't stand for something, everybody likes you, right? You can, oh my God, yeah, everybody loves Jacob. That's a problem. Like I need people to hate Jacob because I have to stand for something. He stands for this. And then some people don't like that. So I think people try to please everybody with themselves, obviously, but with their businesses and try to get business everywhere instead of laser focusing in on the industry and going deep. Because when you go deep, that's where the money's at.
Absolutely.
You could probably 10x your prices just by being the lawyer marketing guy,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Amazing. Jacob, this has been an amazing session. As we wrap up, any final things? Well, I had something written here for you before that. Okay. You said sales and great people. How do you find great people according to you?
Okay, man, you see, that's the tough part. Finding great people, you have to be looking, but not, well, let me say this. When you're yourself, right? So like when you're genuinely you and you're not trying to project any falsehoods on anything for yourself, you're genuinely yourself. The people who are supposed to be with you are going to come to you. And the people who aren't, they're not, right? And that's what I said. You stand for something. You're going to be just like you would stand in your marketing agency as yourself. You need to stand as a brand. So the people who want to work just for you, for example, if you're trying to find good people, when people don't want to work for a marketing company because there's a lot of them out there. But then when you're marketing for lawyers, you might have somebody who didn't make it into law school or is working their way into law school. That's going to be like, man, I really want to know this because one day I'm going to be a lawyer. And if I can learn from him, I'll be able to do that myself. So you'll start to get those types of people around you. You're an honest guy. You're going to get honest people around you, right? So all of that, but you can't force it. But you have to be open enough to be able to see it and bring it in. And I think one of the other biggest things is you never know what people have inside them, right? Because if you'd have met me when I left my parents many years ago, you wouldn't have found this, Jacob, right? It took years for this to come out, but this developed. So you have to be willing to give to people that want to learn. So if they want to be a part of your tribe and they want to do the work, give them the opportunity. It's kind of like what Andy talks about, where if people fuck up, but they were trying to do the right thing, right? They had the right intent. That's okay. They're never going to do that again. Now, if they keep doing that, well, then you got to cut them. But if if you get a bad vibration from somebody, like you just know they're keeping something, like something's not right, and you talk to, like I bring it up and I talk to them about it. And if I feel that dishonesty, then I just won't take these people on. But if there's somebody who's not at a high level that I would need them to be, and I do have a space for them somewhere, I would bring those people on, nurture those people, and work them up. Some of those people have been the best employees and best salespeople that I've ever had.
Amazing. Being who you are attracts the right people, and also, being open to them and coaching them and all that stuff. Jacob, last pieces of advice as we wrap up.
Probably the biggest thing is go for it. Go for it. Like our life is short, and I'm mid-40s. So when I look at, I only have 100 years left to live, dude, I don't have time. I don't have time. So focus on the thing that you want to do and plug your ears for all the distraction. And don't be distracted by the TV, by just the bullshit going on in the media, your neighbors, your parents, anything like that. If the people aren't supporting you, stay away from them. Stay away from them. Get rid of the distraction. And let me clarify that. If people don't support you, it's not always people who agree with you. Because you need people that say, hey man, you need to cool it. Hey, that was uncalled for. That's wrong. You got to have these mentors around you that correct you. But they actually support you and they want you to win. So I guess that's a better way to say it, is you need to have a team of people around you that want you to win. And if they're not wanting you to win, like if you get some success or if you get a win and you are like, you kind of cover it and shelter it from somebody in your family or a friend or anything like that, you need to get rid of those people. Because if you show me success, man, I'm clapping for you, bro. I want you to win. I want everybody to win. There's enough for everybody to have. And your wins don't take away from my wins. So
True. Very powerful, Jacob. Wow, this has been amazing. Really, really special session. I think a lot of people are going to learn a lot from this, apply it in sales and leadership. Jacob, where can people go and find more info about you and everything you do?
So salesbosstraining.com is the website where you can get the information on what we do. And we have the app on the Apple and the Google Play for Android phones or things like that. So that's where all our information is. Instagram. And so I'm on Facebook, Jacob Gaspard, and then Instagram is the Jacob Gaspard, TikTok, the Jacob Gaspard. I'm not much of a social media kind of guy, but you can, if you want to, you can connect with me there. And send me DMs, anything that any questions that anybody ever has. That's kind of the place to get it, That's the easiest place to get in touch with me.
Amazing, Jacob. Well, thank you so much for your time. It's been an absolute blast. And everybody else listening, feel free to share if this was helpful, and we'll catch you another time. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Omar.